For a full military assessment on what's happening in Iraq as well as in Israel, we're pleased to be joined by retired Major General Paul Vallely. General Vallely, thanks for Skyping in to America's Forum this morning.
Good morning, JD.
General, you may be technically retired, but you have a very active group of people on the ground, your contacts in these troubled regions. Give us the latest on what we're seeing now in Iraq.
Well, the situation this morning, based on some FIDA reports yesterday, the ISIS forces there have declared the caliphate for that region or that area of Syria and Iraq that they now control. Number two, we've plussed up American forces up over there now above 800, maybe going to 1,000, some more FBI, CIA. We have special operations now on the ground, able to designate targets. It looks like they're planning some drone attacks against some of the ISIS leaders, just like we did in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So rather than attacking the convoys with air to destroy their capability to take any further terrain over there, or to even threaten Jordan now, which is under threat, their borders, as well as part of that caliphate in that region, JD. So that's the latest we've got from the area.
General, if you had your druthers, if you were in command, would you recommend an attack on the materiel first, or on the leaders, or a simultaneous attack using drones against the leadership as well as airstrikes against the convoy of men and materiel?
Well, there's two reasons for hitting the equipment first. That's their capability to move. That's their capability to take captured equipment now and move it into Syria, which they've done over the last week. As far as we know now, the Free Syrian Army, which I support over there, is very much at risk because now they're faced up against captured American equipment that ISIS forces have taken into that area previously controlled by the FSA, Free Syrian Army, as far as Aleppo. So I would take out the equipment first. That limits their capability to move and shoot. And second, then I would go over to concentration of ISIS forces as the second targeting.
Well, speaking of ISIS, their leader al-Baghdadi released a 19-minute audio tape yesterday, a message for Ramadan of sorts, asking all Muslims to, quote, rush to your state and insist upon your rights. He went on to say, quoting now from the statement in its translation, the Muslims today have a loud, thundering statement and possess heavy boots. They have a statement that will cause the world to hear and understand the meaning of terrorism, and boots that will trample the idol of nationalism, destroy the idol of democracy, and uncover its deviant nature. General, as I understand it, al-Baghdadi has now been recognized as the caliph for the caliphate. These words are strong. We are getting statements. We are seeing the use of social media by ISIS. You used to handle psychological operations. How do you counteract this from ISIS?
Well, you have to counteract it first by action, and we're doing nothing at this point in time other than threats over there. We're not taking the offensive. First of all, you've got to neutralize them. That has a great psychological effect once you start doing that. We've done nothing to even take the first step towards that. Now you have even Iran conducting a little psychological operations over there. They've brought in 3 battalions of their Quds forces, Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Russians now even psychologically have an impact over there because they brought in Russian fighters with Russian pilots. So there's a lot over there really psychologically being aimed at the United States. And the threat there that, of course, the ultimate target is Israel and the United States once the caliphate continues to develop. So this is all very psychological. You're right on, JD.
Well, General Vallely, I also want to talk about the Russians because there's a guy in ISIS who's emerging now as a kind of face man for the group, and he's a Chechen guy named Omar al-Shishani. Now, we see him, he's from Chechnya originally, he's in Iraq right now, and we heard the call from Baghdadi for Muslims to go to their own countries. Do you think this is part of this, where you have an international face, not necessarily someone who's Iraqi or even from the Middle East, participating in this and spreading ISIS through other countries like Chechnya in Russia, or perhaps here in the United States or in Europe?
Well, the Al-Qaeda spinoff, ISIS over there, was developed over the last 18 months. I think it's the same Chechnyan that put a hit out on me last year to kidnap and behead me, and that's on YouTube. But they've been recruiting all over the world the radicals, and of course the Chechens have been involved right from the beginning, as you know, in Afghanistan. So they've been a big part of the trained forces, and the Chechens are good. They're good fighters. They're good shooters. They're very powerful leaders. They have a very big impact on the Al-Qaeda forces, and now, of course, ISIS. So I'm not surprised to see that that leader is there.
And so, to follow up on that, we see the threat within Iraq as well. Does this also signal to you that the threat could also be building outside as well, even though the voice is coming from inside Iraq, calling out to other countries to create offshoots of ISIS, not just Al-Qaeda?
Well, that's true. And then you compound that with the Sunni leadership from the old Saddam forces that's being run by General al-Dori out of a site inside of Jordan, information we received last week. So this is a joint Sunni operation, ISIS, in order to take down the Baghdad government. And of course, the Baghdad government yesterday failed to respond, failed to do anything other than recess. And so now you can see they didn't follow the Egyptian model. The Egyptians moved very quickly within 48 hours to take out Morsi, as well as the Muslim Brotherhood. You got to be very decisive over there in what you do. They understand decisive measures and positive measures more than talk. They don't regard talk as anything but talk, and that's what they see Obama doing.
Paul, as we take a look at that meeting of the parliament yesterday that in effect went into a form of meltdown, you said something a minute ago that requires further examination. You mentioned in passing that someone had put out a hit on you believe one of the Chechens. Now, just personally, you just mentioned that matter-of-factly. I want to judge how seriously you gauge that threat.
Well, it is serious. It's on tape, 30 minutes. I'm the only American that they put on the video that they then placed on YouTube with the black flag in the background, the Chechen chastising all Americans and the United States, and then singling me out because I'm the only one that's been inside Syria in the last year. Vetting out the forces over there, the Al-Qaeda from the Free Syrian Army, from other groups that have come in like Hezbollah into that area. But the FSA really needs support. They need equipment. They need help because they do not want an Islamic government there. They're secularists. They really are. These are 8 generals that defected from the Assad regime and started the Free Syrian Army, along with a number of others out of the armed forces in the government there. But no one's helped the Free Syrian Army. The Qatar is funding most of the ISIS money right now, as we understand it.
Well, that's very disturbing.
We've done nothing against Qatar.
General, a couple of minutes left. We would be remiss if we did not recalibrate our focus and take a look at what is going on in Israel. Reports this morning of possible revenge killings in the wake of what transpired with the 3 teenagers on top of Israel's military response. What is the latest you're hearing from Israel?
Well, I think they're planning a more aggressive phased operations against Hamas at this point in time, because they realize Hamas is supported by Iran. Iran is over there supporting a number of terror groups. I mean, it's really a very complex situation on that chessboard over there. But the fact is that they will be conducting more operations, and they've got to now look at their borders on the north with Syria, as well as Lebanon, because as the Levant spreads over there, you can see that the caliphate wants to tear down those borders. So Israel is very impacted, not only from Gaza and the West Bank, but also from the northern border. So they're in a situation, they've got to do something more aggressively.
Less than a minute remains. Very quickly, Paul. The White House, the State Department calling on Israel to react with restraint. Was that the diplomatic equivalent of a slap in the face toward Israel?
Well, it's our typical response, you know. We can sit back and watch while the others spread their evil around the world. So you've got to be aggressive in this war. And this is a war to save the world and save democracy, to save Israel, to save the United States. And we've got to get tough. America's got to do something, as well as some of the other countries over there.
General Paul Vallely will have to leave it there. As always, we thank you for your insights. We just heard the General, John. He says it's time to get tough. What say you? We'd love to have your comments. You can tweet them to us at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email and Facebook. America's Forum continues following this timeout.